and hand straight over to Emma. Welcome, Emma. Do you want to introduce yourself, and over to you?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So my name is Emma Pickering and I'm the Senior Operations Manager at Refuge. I oversee the Technology Facilitated Abuse and Economic Empowerment team here. We're a small team that works nationally to support women and children around complex tech abuse and economic abuse concerns. The language that I'll be using today will be gendered because what we've recognised within our own recording and our own work with survivors is that technology facilitated abuse predominantly impacts female survivors. We do, however, support male victims as and when they need our support. And also, I just wanted to mention a few things as well. I will be asking you a few questions, and I appreciate there's lots of people on the call. So if you want to just put the questions within the chat, that would be really helpful. And also, if you do have any questions or I'm explaining something that you're confused about or you want me to expand on, again, please put that in the chat and I'm happy to expand. And also, the session may potentially be triggering. So again, I can stay on at the end or I can give people my contact details as well if people want to know where to go to for further support and advice. So I'll continue. So the aims of the session are recognise ways in which abusers misuse technology, understand the emerging trends of technology facilitated abuse, know how to respond to victims and develop a safety plan, and know where to look for further resources and support. And just to give you a brief overview of our team, so there's myself as a Senior Operations Manager, we have a manager and a deputy manager. And within our service, we have 4 tech abuse leads that work nationally across all of our services. We have a national helpline lead that supports the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. We have a youth tech abuse lead and 2 economic tech abuse leads as well. And each person has a specialism, so an area that they've spent time researching, so focusing on disability and assistive technology. They'll focus resources around modern slavery and trafficking and the use of technology, looking at young people and the use of technology and how it can be misused as well. We have 105 trained tech champions across all of our services. So these are frontline IDVAs, outreach workers, IRIS workers, community workers that we've trained to be able to recognise and respond to tech abuse concerns. And we directly support women and children to address complex tech abuse and economic abuse concerns. So the referrals that come through to my team are the most complex, where we're looking at Wi-Fi hacks, where we're looking at stalkerware and the misuse of tracking devices, which again we'll talk about throughout the session. We have some key messages within our service. Everything we do focuses on these key messages, so they are to stay one step ahead of the changes as technology is constantly evolving. Our team needs to dedicate time to be able to research new emerging forms of technology, apps, social media changes, privacy concerns, anything that could impact a survivor's ability to be able to use technology safely. We make sure that we empower women to use technology safely and avoid further compounding their isolation. We hear sometimes agencies say to women, you need to come offline, you need to change your phone number, you need to purchase a new handset. All of these things are really detrimental to their safety, and it further compounds their isolation, which is what a perpetrator's main objective is. So what we do is we support them to be able to use technology safely, try and find out what the issues are and make sure that they can continue to stay online safely. And also, it's really unhelpful to say to a survivor that you need to change your handset and you need to change your phone number, because when that phone number goes back into circulation, what we're finding is perpetrators are then able to ask and request for the number themselves and then create concerns and issues for that survivor, such as using a spoofing app to be able to impersonate the survivor's phone number, along with the phone number, and contact agencies impersonating them. And then they can cancel child contact meetings, appointments with solicitors, refuse housing allocation. And we've seen this happen, and it does create loads of concerns. So actually keeping hold of the phone number is really important, and the handset is not the concern, which we'll look again about what we mean about this in more detail throughout the session. We promote a learning culture across our organisation. We're a small team, so we need to be able to make sure that we're filtering the knowledge and resources nationally. And we also want to work with smaller charities nationally to make sure that every person that's a victim of technology facilitated and economic abuse is able to access the right resources and information. They don't just have to go to refuge to have that support. We avoid educating perpetrators. So when we put any of our content online, on our website, when we talk to the media, we make sure that we're informative, but we don't do it in a way that gives people a how-to guide of how to abuse somebody. And we lobby government and industry leads. So the most recent one is the online safety bill. We're working really hard to make sure that there is a VAW code of practice within the online safety bill, that social media is regulated, so they have to be answerable to Ofgem and they have to be able to pull content online, and people cannot be abused through online platforms in the way that we're seeing at the moment. And also we worked on the Naked Threat campaign around 18 months ago, and this was around the threats to share intimate images. So what is tech abuse? It's perpetrators misusing technology to facilitate the following forms of abuse. So physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, and economic abuse. Does anybody have any ideas around how technology can be misused, or have you seen within your own work or own experiences how technology has been misused? If you could put in the chat, that would be really helpful. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen just so I can see the chat for a second. So we've got tracking apps, grooming, revenge porn, being forced to take intimate pictures, yes. Social media, absolutely a huge concern for us. Fake profiles, using people's email accounts. Internet of Things, yep. Multiple messaging, so bombarding the victim, yep. Scams. Young adults have been online their whole lives, new dangers, older people don't understand. Identity theft, doxing, not enough legislation, internet of devices being used to control within the home, hacking, sharing I can't say the word, defamatory information, changing all their passwords so they can't access emails. Yeah, they're great, thank you. I'm just going to continue to share my screen and go through them with you. So we've broken it down. So what we've seen within our services around physical abuse, the destruction and removal of technology. So when someone's removing someone's access online, which we've seen an increase of during COVID as well. So people couldn't reach out to family, friends, they were completely isolated. They couldn't contact any agencies for advice. They couldn't flee. Monitoring through the use of technology. So this could be via synced accounts, share it, family link. It could be through Internet of Things. It could be through tracking devices. We've got here location tracking, and that could be through apps, or again, it could be through physical tracking. And by physical tracking, I mean the tracking devices. Recording devices, which we're seeing a huge increase in. And here I've got microchipping. So we put this here because we've got a modern slavery service within our organisation. We do some work with them to collect data and look at trends around technology misuse. And there was a trend around perpetrators purchasing pet microchipping kits from eBay. And when you've purchased these kits, and they're only about £35, £40, they were then microchipping victims. So then they could scan them and move them across to different countries. And also during COVID, there was a real spike in increase with people being moved but never actually physically meeting their trafficker. So a lot of the time people are trafficked to different countries through the use of Telegram and WhatsApp, so encrypted messaging platforms. So messages are self-destructing, there's no evidence trail. The police can't then monitor to see where the messages came from. So again, it's really difficult to be able to create an evidence bundle of where someone was moved to and from. And I should pre-warn people, I do apologise if any of this content is difficult to hear. So if you need to take a moment away from your screen, then please do. The sharing of intimate images, threats to share intimate images, online grooming, especially with children and young people. Deep fake. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, this is a form of technology. It's a software that can be used where you can superimpose an image onto another image or a video. So what we've seen, especially victims at higher risk in South Asian communities, when there's a risk to their personal safety from the perpetrator, but also from the wider community, is where someone superimposed an image onto the video of a porn star, and then it appears like that person is engaging in sexual activity, even though they're not. And also the legislation's flawed because then they have less rights to be able to go to the police and say these images of me are being circulated, because the image technically doesn't belong to the victim, it belongs to somebody else. So we're seeing a real increase in the misuse of deepfakes because it allows the perpetrator to have absolute blackmail and control over their victim. Recording without consent, so this is hidden cameras in bathrooms, in bedrooms, again seeing an increase in hidden cameras around the home, and we'll look at that throughout the session of what these look like and how to try and identify them. Psychological, so gaslighting, Internet of Things, so you mentioned that earlier, so real increase in Alexas being misused, Google Home Hubs, smart TVs, Ring doorbells, but there's more on the market now than there was 18 months ago. So you've got more smart microwaves, smart cookers, plugs. We've seen perpetrators plug in hair straighteners and then go out to work and then turn them on remotely through the app. So there's a real concern with the misuse of home devices. And interestingly, last year what we've seen was perpetrators restricting the access to heating and lighting, but this year they're doing the opposite. They're turning it up, they're leaving it on for longer, so it creates a larger bill for the victim that they then they're liable to pay, which becomes really impossible to be able to meet the costs. Online impersonation, stalking and harassment, again through the misuse of social media, usually constant calls and text messages. And this isn't exhaustive, this is just an overview, by the way. And then economics, so we're looking at fraudulent debts, controlling resources, enforcing spending limits, limiting earning potential and online banking. It's near impossible now to try and obtain any form of credit that's not online. So mortgages, credit cards, loan applications, they're all online. And if you know someone's information, if you have access to their ID, you're able to gain access to loans and credit in their name. They are liable, but you've fraudulently taken out those debts. So we're seeing a real increase in perpetrators fraudulently taking out debts in a survivor's name. So we work with creditors to make sure that they write debts off, and we produce evidence as well if we can provide evidence that there has been coerced debt because of the economic abuse that they've suffered, to try and make sure that creditors are taking this into account and writing off debts, so a survivor's not liable to be paying these debts off long term, because the impact that it has on someone's ability to be able to flee is quite significant. This is our emerging trends graph. So these are some of the issues that we've seen within our own service. Again, it's not exhaustive. There is other issues such as complex Wi-Fi hacks that we're seeing an increase in at the moment. But you can see here gaming, so the misuse of using gaming devices, usually to contact children when there's child contact orders in place that prevents the perpetrator from contacting the child. What they'll do is they'll know the child's online details and they'll be contacting them, impersonating either somebody from school or a friend. Insecure email. If your email is insecure, all of your other accounts are obviously compromised. So we advise people to use Proton Mail because it adds an additional layer of security. Online stalking, so that can range from anything from stalking people on social media, dating sites, via shopping apps. It can range from anything that's online. Again, the misuse of social media you can see is quite significant. Compromised devices, which could be linked accounts, sync devices, any kind of tracking devices as well. Again, children's devices. We can't assume that it's only the survivor, the victim, that's being impacted by technology facilitated abuse. We're seeing increasingly more and more children being victims of technology facilitated abuse, whether that's through being gifted tech during child contact, hidden technology or tracking devices, or even things like monitoring apps, parental apps that people are normalising and encouraging people to use, or even having them enforced in child contact agreements as well and court orders. We're seeing a real increase in concerns there. The misuse in physical tracking devices. So this can range from your AirTags, your tiles, all the way to the cheaper makes and models that can be purchased that are more discreet. Harassment via messages, intimate images. Right to be forgotten is a process where if there's information about you that exists online that you don't want to be online because it could be detrimental to you, then there's a process through Google called the right to be forgotten, where you can request that the information related to any news articles or information is removed offline. So there's no way that people can trace that information. And we've supported a number of clients to go through this process when they've maybe been named in like local or national newspapers in relation to their court case. Which they're not supposed to do, but sometimes the press do. So we've supported them to remove the content offline. Fake profiles, so gaslighting, Internet of Things, so the misuse of home devices, and again, dating apps is a huge concern as well, which sometimes I think people can overlook because they're not regulated. And what we've seen is perpetrators putting intimate images on that survivor's platform. Because she's then breached the community standards, she's removed off the platform. She can't then have access to the image to report it. She can't have access to the image to show it to the police as evidence. And the image potentially still could be circulating somewhere and she can't get on the platform. And it's really difficult to try and contact these providers because they don't communicate back and we don't have a human that we can always speak to. I'm just going to quickly go over intimate image-based abuse, and the reason is because we're seeing an increase in referrals coming through to our service and concerns around intimate image-based abuse. So this is obviously when someone has shared a sexually intimate image or video of another person without their consent, and the key thing here is with the aim of causing them distress and harm. So if you're looking at the legislation, that's the key area there. It's causing them distress or harm. And arguably, there is no reason why you would send or share an intimate image of someone without the purpose of humiliating them, blackmailing them, and causing them distress. And it refers to materials that are shared both offline and online. It includes uploading images to the internet, social media channels, sharing by text and email, and showing someone physically, which I think sometimes people often overlook is the last one, which is showing somebody physically. And also we've seen perpetrators share the images to cause humiliation with work colleagues, with family members, friends, but also with children. So if they are sharing them with children, again, that's another offence as well, the distribution of intimate images with children. So again, that needs reporting to the police. And it is a criminal offence under Section 33 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015. What we've noticed is, and it's no surprise, social media is often used during the distribution of intimate images because you have the biggest platform where you can humiliate your victim. There are tools available to survivors, including Google reverse search image. If they have access to the intimate image, that is, they can then hash the image and prevent it from spreading online anywhere else. And young people who are victims may use the Internet Watch's Foundation Report Remove tool, and it is a really great tool that can remove images offline, and it works incredibly quickly. There's also the Stop Non-Consensual Intimate Image Abuse organisation and Revenge Porn as well. Helpline, they also support as well hashing images. And when I talk about hashing an image, what the process there is, making sure that the data behind an image is hashed. So anything that's uploaded in relation to that image, it will just automatically be blocked from going online. I mentioned briefly earlier that we campaigned in 2021 around the Naked Threat campaign, and this was to make sure that it was a criminal offence to threaten to share an intimate image, because we'd seen a real increase in survivors coming through to our service and saying to us, my perpetrator's threatening to share an image of me. I don't know if he has it, or I know he has it because at one point, I'd consensually shared an image with him, but now he's threatening me with this image. I've reported it to the police and they're informing me that I have to wait until the image has been circulated and then I can report to them. There's nothing I can do in the meantime. And it's not a nice feeling to have to sit and wait to see if an image goes online and what the consequences are. And it was causing a lot of people, understandably, a great deal of distress. So we campaigned to make sure that it's a criminal offence to threaten to share an intimate image now. So your options, if you are a survivor, reverse search image is a process which you'll need the original image or copies of the image. You will open Google Images up and you drag and drop the image into the search bar. If there are no images found, the top result will be no other sizes of this image found. And if there are images, the results will be find other sizes. And by clicking on all sizes, this will take you to a page with all the search results. And it will directly then take you to the exact web page where the images belong. And if it is in relation to your image, again, you can take screenshots for evidence for the police, and you can report the image as well to make sure it's removed offline. But not everybody has the image, and that's the problem. So for many people, they're not sure if the image even exists, or they don't have the image anymore, so they don't have that option. So there is a process called setting up Google Alerts. And this is a process where you can set up an alert through Google associated potentially, say, with your name, any phrases that you think may pop up as well. And then what that does is it will alert you through your mobile phone. You'll get a notification and it will take you directly to the web page. And then you'll be able to see if anything's been uploaded associated with your name. And that just gives people some confidence that if anything was to be uploaded online, they'll get a notification straight away. They can act on it. They can check to see if it is in relation to them, and they can quickly report it, block it, pull it down, and collect evidence for the police as well, rather than sitting there waiting for somebody else to say, I came across your image. And then knowing that other people have seen that image and it's been circulated numerous times and it's been online for a long time. So gather evidence is important, create a timeline of the abuse, inform them that you can report to the police if you want to, report and block individuals on platforms if you're being harassed. You can discuss reverse search image in Google Alerts with your survivors, consider referrals to the revenge porn helpline, and if they're under 18, they can report via the report remove tool through the Internet Watch Foundation. I'm going to quickly talk you through location settings, and the reason that this is so important is because we have a number of refuge-based accommodation services and also women that potentially are moving to another safe accommodation in the community. And it's important that when people are moving and fleeing, that they do so safely, that they're not later tracked and have to move again. We need to try and reduce the amount of times a survivor needs to keep moving on to safety. And it's impossible to be able to find a survivor nowadays without the use of tech in some way, shape or form. So there's a great deal of work that we have to do to make sure that somebody is kept safe somewhere. If we have a survivor that we're working with and she has, say, 3 children that all have technology, that's potentially over 100 devices that we have to secure and over 300 apps that we have to look at individually. And we have to make sure every single one of those devices and apps are secured, because anything could potentially, if we miss something, could potentially later on create a concern for the survivor. So there's a great deal of work that has to go into making sure someone gets to a place of safety and when they're there, stays there safely. So saying here it's various devices have location settings. So obviously your mobile phone have location services on. You can actively go in and turn these off. Your smart home devices all have built-in location as well. Fitbits and smartwatches obviously have GPS as well. And you also within apps, there's numerous apps that have have location tracking, such as Find My iPhone, Google Maps, which if someone needs to navigate a local area, a new area, or go somewhere they've never been before, you can download Google Maps offline, so they don't have to have that live where somebody could see their route. Snapchat social media obviously has location inbuilt as well, and so does every shopping online, shopping, banking, everything does. Everything has a location, so we need to make sure that we're considering all apps that somebody is using. Tracking and surveillance, so there are a number of ways in which this is a form of abuse. So location settings, as we've just mentioned, access to accounts, it could be shared accounts or somebody being able to gain access to an account. The most common way that someone was found in refuges last year was through the misuse of Netflix. So that could be because a survivor may be using an account that was associated with the perpetrator and she hasn't actively logged them out, or she's still using the perpetrator's account. If you go onto the desktop version of Netflix, you can see the location and the IP address. And from there, if you know what you're doing in regards to IP addresses as well, you'll be able to find the exact location. So again, it's just sometimes the smaller apps that people are using that people overlook. They'll spend time focusing on location services and devices, but not always considering all the apps in between, such as Tesco Club Card points. If you're using a new club card in a new area, and someone has your online details, they'll be able to log on and see where you've been shopping, or the letters may be sent back to the home address that you've fled from. So it's about considering absolutely everything, which I know and I appreciate is a large amount of work. You've got tracking applications as well, linked devices, physical trackers, and spyware, stalkerware, which we will talk about shortly. So there's just a visual screen grab here just to show you linked devices. Sometimes people overlook this as well. So the first thing I would be advising anybody to do is just check and see, do you have any linked accounts to your own device? So if you look here within your Apple ID and you scroll down to the bottom, you can see here this person has got an iPhone, an iPad, an Apple Watch, a Mac Pro, and the Apple TV as well, all connected to their device. Is there anything there? Is it an old iPhone, an old account that you've forgotten about, that you left behind at the home that you fled from? Remove that. It doesn't have to be there. So it's good just to check every now and then just to make sure that there's nothing there that you have forgotten about. So looking at tracking devices as well. So physical tracking devices, you can see here you've got the AirTags and the Tiles, but they're not necessarily our most common concern. I think AirTags, what we've seen is maybe strangers are using these more than perpetrators. Perpetrators of intimate partner violence are more commonly what we're seeing anyway, misusing ones that can be purchased in bulk, cheaper ones as well, and they're more hidden and discreet. So they're really small. So we've found that they're the size of 5p piece, that they've got like an average 6-month battery life. So you can imagine how well hidden they can be, and they're placing them within cars, within personal items as well. So it's about making sure that people know what to look for and how to identify them as well. And they're very discreet, so they can come in all different shapes, sizes. You've got here a USB stick. This here in the corner is a recording device. The pen's a recording device. The alarm clock's obviously a camera, and the light bulb is a camera as well. And the plug socket's a camera. So you can see here that they look like everyday items. So when we're supporting people to conduct a sweep, we need to make sure that we're considering any possible ordinarily household item that could be a concern as well. And again, just some more visuals just to show you some of the items that we've purchased as well that have also been misused. I'm going to talk to you about stalkerware now. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the term, but I'm going to try and explain what this means and the implications it can have for a survivor. So Stalkerware refers to a tool. It's a software program that lets another person, often a perpetrator or family member, secretly monitor and record information about a person's activity on their phone. It can be used as a tool by an abuser to track, monitor, stalk and harass the survivor. So if I was to place Stalkerware on somebody else's device, I would have full access to everything that is on that device. That's all messages. I can listen into your phone calls. I can listen into your surroundings at any given moment through the phone as well. And that's visual and audio. I can see your camera roll. I can see your notes, your emails, your I can go into your banking app. I can go into anything. I can read anything before you or after you. If you've deleted something, I can find it. I can gain access to it. So it gives someone access to absolutely everything. So you can imagine if someone has that on their device, the impact that that could cause a survivor if they were communicating with an agency, if they were putting a plan in place to flee the abuser, the impact that that could create. So identifying stalkerware on a device. So here's some of the signs that we always ask our survivors to look out for. So rapid battery decline, so needing to recharge after short periods of use. And this really is short periods of use, like after 15 minutes, the phone battery could be significantly draining. So you're going to need to be charging the phone again. So eventually it'd become almost unable to take the phone outside because you're constantly having to recharge the phone. The phone is excessively hot to touch, even when it's not in use. Spikes in data usage, increase in weekly screen time. So for those of you that have set an alert on your phone, so every week you'll have a message that says how long you've been using your phone for on average each day. We had a survivor that spoke to us and hers was popping up to say that she was online for 18 hours every day. And she knows that she wasn't using her phone that much. So again, it's an indication that the phone is mirroring to another device. Glitching on the device as well. If your emails have been read, if things have been read before you've seen them, if you can hear background noise as well within phone calls, things like that are to be concerned about. But above all, if someone's relaying information to you in detail, that would give you an indication that something isn't right and that you need to be concerned. So safe removal of stalkerware. So you need to remove and purchase via USB, which is compatible with the device. Copy any files and evidence that you want to keep. You can then save these on an old device. If there's no location-based concerns, you need to factory reset the device and wipe the contents from the device entirely. Create a safe new email address, set up a new account, either a Google account or an Apple ID. And when downloading new apps, use new login details and change your passwords on the accounts. It's really important here to remind people that it's not the phone that's the problem. We've had many survivors come to us and say, I've purchased 3 or 4 phones and the problem's still persisting. And it's because stalkerware sits in the cloud system. It's hidden. You can't identify it as an app within itself. So purchasing a new phone is completely redundant because it's not helpful. It's hidden in the cloud system. That's what needs to be wiped, and we need to create a new one so we can remove the contents entirely. And again, only do this if it's safe to do so. If someone's still staying and living with a perpetrator and they don't have plans to leave yet, but that's something they're going to think about later on, it might not be safe to remove the stalkerware. They may still have to use a compromised phone for the time being. But what we would look at doing is getting them a burner phone, a secondary phone that they can communicate with agencies and make a safety plan, so then the perpetrator isn't informed and aware of this safety plan. So again, it's going back to remembering the device is not compromised, the cloud system is. Again, the only time we would recommend purchasing a new device is if the issue is continuing to persist as well. And if the person's potentially then cloned a SIM card, which is an entirely separate thing to stalkerware. The number is not normally the issue as well. They may have access to things that are associated with the number, so that may be something to consider, but the number is not necessarily the concern. and only look at changing the client's number if the client is using a network that the perpetrator has access to. So if she's connected to, say, 3 and he works there, or he has a friend that works there, and she's concerned that they'll have access to her information, then we would advise that she would change to a new network provider. So for prevention, it's advisable to download an anti-spyware software scanner to the device, such as Avast, Kaspersky or Certo. They all have free scanning software in the App and Play Store. Avoid having the device unlocked because it reduces its security. Do not open and accept means and links from unknown numbers or an abuser, because there's a myth that you can only put stalkerware on a device if you have physical access to a device, and that isn't true. You don't need physical access to the device. You can put the device stalkerware on the device. If you're purchasing stalkerware and you're paying a monthly subscription and you've got quite a decent package which gives you access to absolutely everything that you want, then the provider of that stalkerware will send you a meme or a link to send on to your target. As soon as that person has opened that meme or link, it integrates within the cloud system. So all they need is the phone number of the victim or physical access to the device, so you can put the code in yourself. But most people now won't ever pick up the phone themselves to put it in. They'll be sending it through a meme or a link. We work with the Coalition Against Stalkerware. It was founded in 2019. These are different agencies across the world that come together. We all have the same goal and objective, and that is to eradicate stalkerware, to make sure that it can't be found in the Play Store and the App Store. We've done a lot of work with Google to remove stalkerware. The problem is that, people can then find different ways of getting around this. And what we've noticed is a real increase in the misuse of parental monitoring apps that now have stalkerware integrated into them. So recently we found one called Pingu. So it was a parental monitoring app where you can monitor your child safely. That's how it's targeted at anyway. And then what happens within that is you can read your child's text messages, you can monitor their online activity, but also you could drop in and you could listen to their conversations while they're at school. So this is a form of stalkerware as well. So that's how they're managing to get around the fact that they're not meant to be advertising stalkerware in the App Store or Play Store anymore. When we're working with our survivors, we need to be asking them a particular set of questions. Within my team, we do a detailed tech assessment, but just as a breakdown for you to take away for some tips and advice for you to be working with survivors. Some of the things that we'd be asking is, what phone are you using? Who owns this phone? Who set it up? What devices do you have? Create a list. What are in the home? Who owns them? Who has set them up? If you've fled, what have you taken with you, and what devices have you left behind? This is a really, really key question that people sometimes overlook, because we've had a survivor that had fled, taken an iPhone with her, and had forgotten about an old iPhone that she'd left in a drawer at home. He had turned that back on. It was still linked to her Apple ID, and then he was able to find her location. So it's about thinking about what has been left in the property behind that we may need to disconnect. What accounts does the survivor use and have? Again, it's helpful to make a list. Who set them up? Who has access? Are they shared passwords, shared accounts, or would they be able to guess the passwords? Do we need to make sure that we're securing them all, which is obviously advisable? What devices and accounts are the children using? And what is the survivors and perpetrators' tech knowledge? We need to know, how able is the survivor to be able to navigate her settings, her security? Does she need a lot of support? Is English not her first language? Do we need to support with visual guides? And what is the perpetrator's professional tech knowledge? We need to make sure that we're aware of his capabilities as well. Are there any patterns of behaviours or concerns that may indicate specific devices are being misused? And we need to then offer support around gathering evidence of tech abuse, so we can support with reporting to the police. And just some top tips. So if you're going to take anything away, these are just some things to take away. So change your Wi-Fi password regularly. If you've got routers at home that you've been given through BT, Virgin, whoever your provider is, and you have that unique login, it's not unique. They're all online and anyone can gain access to them. So make sure everybody is making a conscious effort to regularly change Wi-Fi password routers. Use strong passwords on all accounts, and if it's difficult to try and remember them all, which I appreciate it is, maybe use a password manager account as well. So then you only need to remember one password to then gain access to all the others. But again, make sure that is secured. Do not use identifiable pictures and information on your social media profiles. And this advice, by the way, is only applying to people where there's concerns that they may be monitored or stalked online. Do not link profiles and accounts. Complete image and Google search regularly to check what information is about you is online. Do not use family link sharing or linked devices. Download an antivirus. Check the settings within your home devices as well. See if they have auto transcribe on. See what the settings are. Set two-factor verification on all accounts. Regularly review devices, privacy and security settings, particularly after updates. Sometimes when you've updated your device, it can go back to the main original settings, so you might actively need to go in and change them. Check your children's and devices accounts as well. Consider setting parental controls on the router and gather evidence of tech abuse where possible, so such as screenshots and URLs. We have a tech safety website as well. So this is visual guides and resources for survivors. So again, if English is not their first language, the visual videos that we have within the tech bot are really helpful. So it helps somebody step by step turn off their location services, secure their social media accounts. Within our tech safety website, we have a home device. So there we have all of the Internet of Things devices and how to secure them. And we've got a digital breakup tool, so it looks like a tablet. And if you hover over all the individual apps, that shows you how to secure your banking app, your social media, your shopping apps, etc. We've tried to keep it as interactive as possible and as take out as many words as possible, so it's really easy for people to follow. And the tech safety tool is multilingual as well, so we have it in English, Urdu, Polish and Spanish. And that's a very, very quick whistle stop of the Tech and Economic Abuse Service. So does anybody have any questions?
There are a couple of questions in the chat, Emma. There's a lot of questions which says, please can we have a copy of the slides? So if you're happy for them to be shared, we can add them with the recording of this so that it goes up on the Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership website, if that's okay, and then everybody can see them there.
I'm happy for people to have access to the slides. That's absolutely
Okay,
fine.
lovely. Then we'll do that. Then there were some questions quite a bit further back. There's a question from Rowan saying,
yes.
Do you recommend involving the police before you remove stalkerware so that evidence isn't lost?
Well, you can. However, it's really difficult for the police even to be able to identify stalkerware. So you'd have to also be mindful they're going to have to take the victim's device. So I suppose it's about weighing up, and it's about their individual circumstances as well, i.e. if they're staying with the perpetrator, if they're leaving. If they've left or leaving, then I would advise to speak to the police, report it, and hand over their phone if it's safe to do so they can try and remove any evidence. But they're going to be able to find the evidence on his device more than they are hers. So that's why the police need to be better at removing the perpetrator's device for evidence. So that's a piece of work that we're doing with the police at the moment. But even creating a log of things like, he informed me, the perpetrator informed me of particular conversations I've had, recording maybe if the phone's glitching, things like that she could maybe use as evidence as well, because it is really, really difficult to be able to identify stalkerware. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up in the App Store, it doesn't show up on the phone at all. And also because the way in which stalkerware works, as soon as the perpetrator knows that phone is going off to the police, they're just going to remove the stalkerware anyway from the phone. So then if you go and try and find evidence of it, it's gone.
Thank you. And then there's a couple of questions about specific groups and support for them. So there's one about, which I've now lost, about whether you do any work with, support people with learning disabilities. And then there's another one about Gypsy, Romany, Traveller and Boater communities, and whether there's any issues around tech abuse that might specifically impact those communities. So two different sort of questions about individual groups of adults.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to go back so I can find them. So we do work with, so we have a tech lead who works, and her specialism is disabilities, looking at assistive technology, supporting women with learning difficulties and physical difficulties as well. So we've done a big piece of work around physical access to a refuge and what they'll need, looking at all the physical requirements around technology. We've also done a piece of work around people who have learning difficulties and disabilities, and the additional needs that they will have to be able to use technology safely. So it's about changing our communication as well, because sometimes the messages that we relay are not going to be as clear as what they would be if there wasn't additional disabilities that was in place. Also, we're doing a piece of work around, the government have got, I think it's about 1.6 billion. It's a large amount of money that they're gifting to adult social care to give to people with physical and learning disabilities and elderly clients as well, to place assistive technology, so tech within the home, to reduce the amount of times that carers need to go into the home. So we're doing a big piece of work and making sure that when they're gifted these forms of tech, it's done safely, because we are seeing an increase in carers misusing tech, either removing it, restricting access, or monitoring them through the use of tech. So again, that's a piece of work that we're doing as well. I'm sorry I can't delve into that a lot more. I'm just conscious of the time. In terms of working with Gypsy, Romany travellers, we don't have a specific tech lead, because I'll only allocate a tech lead if they have a lived experience. But we have worked with a few members of the community, and what we've noticed is physical tracking devices are a huge concern. But we don't have, unfortunately, a great deal of research around this or data to be able to give you any further information other than what we've seen with the few cases that we've supported. Is physical tracking devices are a huge concern, and also messaging within the communities as well, via social media and messaging platforms as well, to notify if someone's going to move to another area so that they can monitor them as well. So it's really, really difficult for somebody to flee because they're monitored in an additional way as well.
There's the one that's just come in by Alexandra. If you can see that right at the bottom, around 16 to 24-year-olds.
Just have a look. Sorry, I just didn't want to miss any. We're currently running. So the reason that we've got a youth tech lead is because what we're seeing specifically is that they use technology in a different way to us. So you know, we need to inform young people. They know what they're doing online better than any one of us. But things like using Snapchat, for instance, it's a messaging platform where the messages disappear. But we need to let people know that actually, through research, what we've identified is these images don't disappear, they land on the dark web. So we need to let young people know, when you're innocently maybe sharing these images and thinking it's quite an intimate image, but it's okay because it disappears and it deletes. It's not deleted, it's hidden somewhere else. So we're needing to do a lot of work with young people to let them know the risks around being online, but making sure we do it in a way that we're not scaring them, because they're going to still be using tech anyway, and we want them to do that, but we want them to do that safely. And alongside the young people's workshops as well, we also co-deliver with parents, because we think it's really important that we inform parents of the risks as well, but make sure that they're informed of how a young person is using technology, because I think there's sometimes a risk of two extremes with parents, either a lack of understanding of how an app is used, so not really fully understanding the risks around using a particular app or device, or the risk of completely removing something entirely, and then that can create further problems. So it's about finding that balance with both the child, the young person, and the parent.
Thank you. I'm just looking to see if we've missed anything. There's a lot of people saying about how much they've learned.
Thank you. I'm sorry it's a very whistle stop trying to ram in lots of content in a short amount of time. But if people are interested in further training, you can send us an email, and if there's a place of work that you work for and you think that it may be beneficial, you can contact us and we can look at booking in a longer training session as well.
And there's a question about whether there's information in the slides. I think there was on the last slide, wasn't there, the details of how to get in touch with you? So the answer to that is yes.
Thank you. I don't want to miss any questions, so I'm just scrolling through as quickly as I can. Also, young people, by the way, are very crafty. What we've noticed, they're very clever. They will have skins on their phone as well. So if you are a parent yourself, grandparent, be mindful of the fact that if you're physically looking at a phone and just quickly scanning through and thinking, okay, they haven't got anything on here that I'm, concerned with, handing the phone back, it may be hidden behind a skin. And by that, you download a skin so you can hide your apps underneath it. So it could look like a camera, it could look like a weather app, and then say underneath that calculator, sorry, there could be 10 apps underneath there as well. So look in the settings as well to see where the apps are, and also check that there's nothing else that they've hidden. I know a few people have put comments around it's frightening. Tech isn't evil, it's just the misuse of it. But I think the key thing here is that we need to inform people of how technology can be misused, but how to keep yourself safe online as well. I've seen a lot of advertising on platforms such as TikTok where it promotes parents to download this software. Yeah, I mean, it's a real concern. The normalisation of monitoring a child to this degree and extent is a real concern for us. We need to move away from that, because no one should be in a position where they can listen into their child and hear those kind of conversations when they're at school, and everyone has a right to privacy. And someone's just put here, and Vault apps, you can see them in their downloaded apps. Yep, absolutely. What are your thoughts on safety apps for survivors? Well, there's a reason that we haven't developed one, is because there isn't one that could exist that would tick all the boxes, keep someone safe completely, be discreet enough, without compromising someone's risk. I think it's a really big ask to ask a survivor to download an app, to collect evidence, store all that evidence on the phone, which we know perpetrators are going to look at. And if he has access to that app and sees that she's been collecting evidence of abuse, it can really escalate her risk. So until they're developed in a way which is safe, I'm not promoting any of them.
Okay, I think I can't see anything.
I'm just going to put my email in here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
To grab that before the session ends. But thank you all, and I do apologise if I've missed any questions. But yeah, if somebody thinks about something later on, people can drop me an email, and then I can try and get back to people next week. And if there's any questions in regards to training, anything specific, I'm happy to answer that as well.
Thank you. So I'm just going to repost the link for the evaluation, because it's got lost in all of those messages, I would think now.
Yeah.
I'll just pop that back in for people. And I'm just going to finish by saying thank you so much, Emma, for that. It was so informative and so much information, and yes, a bit scary, but better to know what's there and where people can go and get help. So and the final bit to just let you know, those of you that have joined, is that we'd like you to do the evaluation, because obviously we plan Stop Adult Abuse Week every year, and we do these series of lunchtime webinars. So we'd really like to know what's been helpful, what do you want more of, what what did you take away from the session? So that'd be really great. And so I'm just going to finish by saying thank you on behalf of all 5 Safeguarding Adults boards to everyone who's attended today and any of the other sessions, and especially thank you to Emma for leading us through that today. Thank you.
Thank you.